I'm all in. I'm all in.
If you think for a second that I don't want to be out there, then you've probably never felt the pure ecstasy of competing and winning.
This was a move to be better on defense, and it was a deliberate move, a well thought out move to make this happen.
The year is 1999, and the Dallas Cowboys are watching their dynasty crumble in real time. Michael Irvin's lying on the turf at Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia, and everyone in that building knows that something's terribly wrong. The playmaker's neck injury would force him into retirement, marking the beginning of the end for the most dominant trio in NFL history. Irvin sustained a non-life-threatening cervical spine injury, but was carted off the field and transported to the Thomas Jefferson University Hospital in Philadelphia. The doctors would discover something that changed everything. Michael Irvin had been born with cervical spinal stenosis and told him that this condition put him at higher risk for injury, including paralysis. If he suffered another blow to the neck or the head, he could potentially be paralyzed for life. And just like that, 1/3 of the triplets was gone. Troy Aikman tried to soldier on, but his body was breaking down too. The 2000 season was Aikman's final season as a professional football player. Aikman suffered several concussions during the season, and a revolving door at quarterback took place between Aikman and former Eagles quarterback Randall Cunningham. By 2001, Jerry Jones made the call. Aikman was waived a day before he was due a 7-year, $70 million contract extension, and ultimately announced his retirement. That's 2 down, 1 to go. Emmitt Smith, the NFL's all-time leading rusher, was the last man standing. But in February 2003, Jerry Jones delivered the final blow. It is with great emotion that I announce that Emmitt Smith will no longer be part of the 2003 Dallas Cowboys football team. The man who'd rushed for over 17,000 yards was being shown the door because he turns 34 in May and was due a base salary of $7 million next season, with a salary cap figure of $9.8 million. The triplets, Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, and Emmitt Smith, were officially history. But if you watched America's Team, The Gambler and His Cowboys, you may have already known that. The whole purpose of this video is to serve as a sequel. What happens to the Dallas Cowboys right after the triplets era? Now, before we get to the content, I wanted to give a shout out to one of my favorite creators, KTO. I actually watched his video the night before I wanted to make this video, and since I'm such a passionate diehard Cowboys fan, I really wanted to do a deep dive and an epilogue to The Gambler and His Cowboys, primarily because it's probably one of my favorite documentaries that I've seen in quite some time. I was pleasantly surprised. This didn't serve as a Dallas Cowboys puff piece. It was raw and unfiltered. It showed all the ups and the downs, all of the flaws of every single character involved, and I felt like it would only be right to make a video that tells you what went down as soon as that Netflix documentary ended. And this is gonna end with the departure of the final triplet, Emmitt Smith. So before we get to the content, if you want more videos like this, make sure you drop, like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. We made over $500 on Thursday Night Football and Prize Picks, and if you tailed my picks, then you probably made some good money too. So far, we're 3 for 3 on all Prize Pick promos for this new NFL season. They're hooking us up with another promo for this Sunday. All Taylor Swift's fiance needs is 1 receiving yard for his square to cash, and now Prize Picks allows you to stack the same player for multiple categories, and they're the only gaming app that lets you do this. So let's take advantage of this. For Thursday Night Football, this is what I'm running with. First, make sure you sign up with my promo code Microphone to get $50 in lineups when you make a play of $5 or more. And for Thursday Night Football, I'm going to be running Josh Jacobs touchdown and rush attempts. Easy stack over there. Austin Eckler gets 2 receptions, and they gave us a discount on Terry McLaurin's receiving yards. Typically, it'd be 54.5 receiving yards. They're letting us get it for 34.5. We're going to play $25 to make $80 here. So for those of you guys that use your free square the way I suggested you to, you may have noticed that Brock Purdy is out for week 2. So thankfully, his square isn't going to count, and all we need is Tua to bounce back versus the Patriots for our $25 to turn into $75. Now, if you've already signed up, I have you covered as well. My Discord community has already been profiting like crazy as a result of this new season, and if you want to join, just click on the WAP link in the description down below. And thank you, Prize Picks, for today's sponsor. And now that we got all that out of the way, let's get to this video because it's crazy. Following the departure of the triplets, the Cowboys were supposed supposed to undergo a smooth transition. Jerry Jones had a plan. He always had a plan, and this plan was to prove to the entire world that he didn't need Jimmy Johnson to build a Super Bowl contender. But sometimes even the best plans go straight to hell, especially with what Jerry Jones would do next. Jones's first move to replace Michael Irvin was to trade not one, but 2 first-round picks to the Seattle Seahawks for Joey Galloway. The Cowboys dealt their 2000 and 2001 number 1 picks to Seattle in return for their wide receiver. This wasn't just any trade. This was desperation disguised as aggression. Galloway was supposed to be the new playmaker, the new Michael Irvin, the guy who'd keep the passing game alive while Aikman still had something left in the tank. Instead, Galloway was limited to just 1 game in his first season with Dallas because of a torn ACL, and he never reached 1,000 yards receiving in 3 subsequent seasons with the Cowboys. Now, something that isn't commonly discussed is what would those picks become for Seattle. Ironically, one of those picks could have easily been the replacement for Emmitt Smith. Seattle used one of those picks to draft running back Shaun Alexander, who would go on to win NFL MVP in 2005, who they would ride to a Super Bowl appearance. In return for an NFL MVP, the Cowboys got 151 receptions for 2,341 yards over 4 years. Surely, coaching was okay, right? Well, during this period of time, Jerry Jones decided to hire from within, promoting Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator Dave Campo to head coach. And this man never stood a chance. I mean, 3 straight 5-11 seasons. Dave Campo is the only Cowboys coach with a losing record, and is also the only coach in franchise history to have never posted a winning season. The Cowboys at this point went from America's team to a laughingstock, from 3 Super Bowls in 4 years to 3 straight 5-win seasons. Jerry Jones, the man who'd orchestrated one of the greatest dynasties in NFL history, had driven the franchise straight into the ground. Jerry Jones did something in 2003 that nobody thought he'd ever do. He admitted that he needed help, real help. Enter Bill Parcells. He came to prominence as the head coach of the New York Giants from 1983 to 1990, where he won 2 Super Bowls, and now he was supposed to come and save America's team. Parcells didn't just bring a new coaching philosophy, he brought discipline and structure, and most importantly, he brought an eye for talent that would reshape the franchise for the next decade. The 2003 draft, that wasn't just a draft, that was a masterclass. In the 3rd round with the 69th pick, they grabbed a tight end from Tennessee named Jason Witten. Yeah, that Jason Witten. But Parcells wasn't done. After the draft, he signed an undrafted free agent quarterback from Eastern Illinois, some kid named Tony Romo. Think about that for a second. In one offseason, Parcells found the Cowboys franchise quarterback and their greatest tight end of all time. One was a 3rd round pick and the other wasn't even drafted. The turnaround was immediate. With Quincy Carter as his quarterback, Parcells would lead the Dallas Cowboys to a 10-6 record, finishing 2nd in the NFC East with their first winning season since 1998. They earned their first playoff berth since 1999. They would lose to Carolina in the playoffs, but this felt different. This felt like hope. Then came 2004 and everything fell apart. Remember Quincy Carter, the quarterback who led them to the playoffs? The Cowboys cut Carter in one of the most shocking events in franchise history, considering how it basically came from out of nowhere. Eventually, the reports indicated that Carter failed multiple drug tests. So now in his desperation, Parcells had to turn to a 41-year-old Vinny Testaverde. The result was the Cowboys finished 6-10. But in 2005, Parcells would really make his mark. With the 11th pick, he was overruled by Jerry Jones, and he drafted DeMarcus Ware. And with the 20th pick, he got his man. After trading down, he got Marcus Spears. In the 4th round, he drafted Marion the Barbarian Barber. And in the 7th round, he found a 4-time Pro Bowler named Jay Ratliff. Marion Barber was something special. They called him the Barbarian because of how violently he ran. He led the NFC with 14 rushing touchdowns in 2006, and he was the first non-place kicker since 2000 to lead the Cowboys in scoring. This dude was a 4th round pick, putting up numbers like a 1st rounder, but that's not all the Cowboys would have in 2006. 2006 also brought forward the most controversial signing in Cowboys history, at least at that point. Terrell Owens, the same guy who celebrated at the Star in midfield twice, was signed to a 3-year, $25 million deal. The relationship between Parcells and T.O., the best that can be said is that the two coexisted. And by coexist, we mean that Parcells largely ignored him. But something magical happened when Tony Romo took over at quarterback for Drew Bledsoe in the middle of the season. The chemistry between Owens and Romo was almost instant. They connected on 199 passes for 3,122 yards and 34 touchdowns. But unfortunately, Cowboy fans remember this season for how it ended. In the playoffs versus Seattle, down 21-20, Martin Gramatica lined up for a chip shot field goal in which Tony Romo would botch the snap. Following this season, Bill Parcells would walk away, and in his place, Jerry Jones would hire Wade Phillips, a defensive genius with the personality of your favorite uncle. 2007 was magical. The Cowboys went 13-3. Tony Romo threw for over 4,200 passing yards and 36 touchdowns. T.O. caught 81 passes for 1,355 receiving yards and 15 touchdowns. They had home field advantage throughout the playoffs. This was supposed to be their year. This had to be their year. And then Cabo would happen. As a result of his celebrity, Tony Romo started dating Jessica Simpson, and during the bye week before the divisional round, Romo and several teammates went to Cabo with Jessica Simpson. The Giants came into Dallas and won 21-17. Just like that, their season was over. The next 2 years under Phillips were exercises in frustration. In 2008, they missed the playoffs at 9-7 despite having one of the most talented rosters in football. T.O. started causing problems in the locker room, questioning whether Romo and Jason Witten were running secret plays without him. By March 2009, T.O. requested to be released, and the Cowboys honored his request. But 2009 would also bring hope once again. The Cowboys finally won a playoff game, their first since 1996, beating Philadelphia 34-14, but they would lose the very next week to Minnesota and Brett Favre. And then came 2010, and the house started crumbling down once more. The Dallas Cowboys would open the season 1-7, and after a blowout loss to the Green Bay Packers, Jerry Jones fired Wade Phillips. For the first time in franchise history, Jerry Jones fired a head coach in the middle of the season. The son of Bum Phillips departed with a record of 34-22 and a 1-2 record in the playoffs. Jerry Jones decided to elevate his offensive coordinator, the former backup quarterback of the triplets era, Jason Garrett, as his successor. And originally there was plenty of promise. Garrett finished the 2010 season with a 5-3 record down the stretch. He was officially named the 8th head coach in Cowboys history on January 6th, 2011, and what followed was a decade of mediocrity. 8-8 in 2011, and he would lose the division in week 17 to the Giants. Garrett would go 8-8 in 2012 and would lose the division in week 17 to Washington. Then he would go 8-8 in 2013, and he would lose the division to, any guesses? The Philadelphia Eagles. The man literally lost his division to each of his division rivals during his first 3 seasons as the full-time head coach. 3 straight years, 3 straight 8-8 seasons, 3 straight week 17 losses with the division on the line. It was almost poetic in its consistency, but it would get even worse from here. The Cowboys were making mistakes in roster construction as well. In 2012, Jerry Jones traded up to get a cornerback from LSU, their 14th overall pick and 45th overall pick in the 2012 draft, to the St. Louis Rams to receive the 6th overall pick, which they used to draft Morris Claiborne. Jerry Jones called him the highest graded cornerback in the NFL draft since Deion Sanders, and this take aged wonderfully. I mean, there is a huge problem with Morris Claiborne. You remember the Wonderlic test? Well, Claiborne reportedly had a score of 4, the lowest reported score in a dozen years. When asked about it, Claiborne admitted that I looked on the test and wasn't nothing on the test that came with football, so I pretty much blew the test off. Claiborne never lived up to the hype. PFF's grades ranked him 80th among cornerbacks as a rookie. And what about the picks that Dallas gave up? Those picks became Michael Brockers and Pro Bowl receiver Alshon Jeffrey. And things would get even worse from there. In 2014, the draft room was tense as it could be, as Johnny Manziel fell to the Dallas Cowboys in the 2014 NFL draft. Luckily for all of us, the Cowboys selected Zach Martin. The year prior, Cowboy fans were scrutinizing Jerry Jones for reaching on a center by the name of Travis Frederick. Ultimately, between Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, and Travis Frederick, the Dallas Cowboys assembled the best offensive line in football. You pair that with late-round gem DeMarco Murray, and the 2014 season became one of the most promising seasons in NFL history. DeMarco Murray rushed for 1,845 yards. The Cowboys went 12-4 and won a playoff game against Detroit, although it was a fairly controversial one, setting up a matchup between them and their kryptonite, the Green Bay Packers. On 4th down, Tony Romo drops back and finds Dez Bryant on a streak. Bryant comes down with a remarkable catch down the sideline. It's ruled a catch on the field. Then it's overturned. Dez caught it, became a rallying cry for Cowboys fans everywhere. They lost this game 26-21, and things would get way worse from there. DeMarco Murray would sign with the Philadelphia Eagles that offseason. Tony Romo would break his collarbone, and the result? The Dallas Cowboys would go 4-12, but things were looking up for the Cowboys' future. In 2016, the Cowboys selected Ezekiel Elliott with their first-round pick, hoping to recreate the magic of 2014 behind that remarkable offensive line, and in the 4th round, they selected their backup quarterback, Dak Prescott. But Tony Romo would injure his back in a preseason game versus the Seattle Seahawks, which would give Dak Prescott an opportunity to show Cowboys Nation what he was made of. Not only would Dak Prescott win the starting position, but he would never give it back, resulting in this.
Football is a meritocracy. You aren't handed anything. You earn everything every single day, over and over again. You have to prove it. That's the way that the NFL, that's the way the football works. A great example of this is Dak Prescott and what he's done. He's earned the right to be our quarterback. As hard as that is for me to say, he's earned that right. He's guided our team to an 8-1 record, and that's hard to do. If you think for a second that I don't want to be out there, then you've probably never felt the pure ecstasy of competing and winning. That hasn't left me. In fact, it may burn more now than ever.
Behind Dak and Zeke, the Dallas Cowboys would go 13-3 just one season after they went 4-12. The Cowboys would be the #1 seed, and things were never looking more bright for this team. Unfortunately, they had to face their kryptonite again. In one of the greatest Dallas Cowboy playoff games that I think I've personally ever seen, the Cowboys would be locked in a battle with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. Ultimately, Aaron Rodgers would make a legendary throw to Jared Cook down the sideline, which would shatter the Cowboys' dreams of advancing to the NFC Championship. The Packers would win 34-31, but Cowboy fans were very optimistic for the future. But unfortunately, they would never live up to that promise. 2 more years of Jason Garrett would follow. 2 more years of talented rosters underachieving. No more playoff appearances. Finally, after the 2019 season, Jerry Jones had seen enough. The Cowboys would fire Jason Garrett, and they would ironically bring on a head coach that has been a thorn in their side for the previous decade. But before we get to Mike McCarthy, we need to talk about another draft disaster, Taco Charlton. In the 2017 NFL Draft, the Dallas Cowboys had the 28th overall pick. Charlton was selected by the Cowboys in the 1st round, while TJ Watt was still on the board. You know, the guy who's been the Defensive Player of the Year. 2 years later, the Dallas Cowboys would release Taco Charlton after he would only record 4 sacks in 2 seasons. But in terms of their head coach, Mike McCarthy, the Cowboys thought that they had their blue chip head coach here, a Super Bowl winning coach that definitely was not carried by a generational talent, a Green Bay legend. This was supposed to be the hire that finally got Dallas over the hump. Year 1 was a disaster. Dak Prescott would break his ankle in week 5, and Dallas finished the season with a 6-10 record, placing them 3rd in the NFC East. But this would result in one of their greatest draft picks of all time. The Cowboys went into the 2021 NFL Draft targeting Patrick Surtain II. They were expecting the Denver Broncos to take a quarterback at number 9, but the Broncos were hoping that they could swing a huge trade for Aaron Rodgers, especially after hiring Nathaniel Hackett, his former offensive coordinator, as their head coach. So to everyone's surprise, they selected Patrick Surtain. As a result, the Dallas Cowboys traded down from their pick, and at the 11th overall pick, they selected Micah Parsons out of Penn State. Micah Parsons, alongside new defensive coordinator Dan Quinn, were like peanut butter and jelly. Parsons instantaneously became a superstar, recording 13.5 sacks as a rookie linebacker. But the playoffs were a completely different story. The Cowboys were dominant in the regular season, 3 straight 12-5 seasons from 2021 to 2023. The offense was explosive. The defense under Dan Quinn was elite. Micah Parsons had become a superstar. But the playoffs was the same old Cowboys. They would lose to the San Francisco 49ers twice, and then in 2023, when they had more hope than ever and earned a 2nd seed throughout the playoffs. They lost to Green Bay 48-32 in one of the most embarrassing home playoff losses in franchise history. Their promising 2023 season came to an abrupt halt, and a loss where Jerry Jones said it was one of the most painful losses he's ever endured. 2024 was supposed to be different, and if you're a fan of this channel, you're probably familiar with this clip.
I'm all in. I'm all in.
But despite this, the team lost depth and didn't have any important signing in free agency, ending with a roster that wasn't set up to succeed. On top of that, Dan Quinn left to the division rival Washington Commanders. Jerry Jones would bring in Mike Zimmer to coach the defense, but unfortunately, Mike Zimmer was no Dan Quinn. Dak Prescott would tear his hamstring in week 9, and the season from that point was pretty much over. Dallas finished 7-10, announcing that they were not going to bring back their head coach Mike McCarthy, primarily because they didn't have a lot of optimism in his ability to manage game situations. And now we're here. Throughout the offseason, the Dallas Cowboys announced that they were going to promote from within. Once again, just like they did with Dave Campo, just like they did with Jason Garrett, they elevated Brian Schottenheimer to the head coaching position. And just like the previous 2 coordinators that were promoted from within, this is the same guy who's never had any prior head coaching experience. This is Jerry going back to his comfort zone, hiring someone he can control. But that's not all the Cowboys would do. The Dallas Cowboys would trade Micah Parsons to Green Bay in exchange for first-round picks in 2026 and 2027, and defensive lineman Kenny Clark. The best defensive player that the Cowboys have drafted since DeMarcus Ware, the heart and soul of the defense, the guy who had 52.5 sacks in his first 4 seasons, was now gone to Green Bay, the same team that's eliminated Dallas from the playoffs twice in the last 8 years. Jerry's explanation?
This was a move to get us successful in the playoffs. This was a move to be better on defense, stopping the run.
At this point, it's been 29 years. That's how long it's been since the Cowboys won a Super Bowl. 29 years since that January night in 1996 when they defeated Pittsburgh 27-17. Since then, they've had 12 playoff appearances, 5 playoff wins, 0 NFC championship games. The triplets are gone. Parcells came and went. Phillips flamed out. Garrett couldn't get over the hump. McCarthy joined the list of failures. And now Micah Parsons is wearing green and gold. You know what the saddest part of this is? There's a reason why this team was called America's team. This franchise was once the gold standard. They had dynasties, plural. Tom Landry had one. Jimmy Johnson built another. Now, they're just another team, another franchise living in the past, selling hope to fans who remember when January meant something in Dallas. Jerry Jones is 82 years old. He's been the owner for 36 years. He's seen the highest highs, and now he's experiencing the lowest lows. The man who once said he'd do anything to win another Super Bowl just traded away his best defensive player for draft picks that won't even help until 2026. Welcome to the Brian Schottenheimer era, Cowboys fans. The dynasty didn't just die when the triplets retired, it was buried piece by piece, bad decision by bad decision, over the course of 2.5 decades. How about them Cowboys? These days, that question sounds more like a punchline than a rallying cry. If you guys enjoyed this video, we have plenty of content covering the latest bit of NFL news, but if you want to see more content like this, suggest it in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.